And we're live. Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace for Podcast at Ground Zero, episode 29, our top 5 post-apocalyptic books. As usual, we have Adam Baum Glancy and special guest host with us tonight, Clint Staples. Clint has been with us before. You were on the transportation, right? Or is it shelter?
Sure. No, it's transportation.
Transportation. All right, so on the road again. And we were also going to have William T. Thrasher with us, but something happened on his end, so he couldn't make it. So there'll just be the 3 of us instead of 4.
He's welcome in the bunker if he shows up midway through.
Oh, of course.
If you're seeing this, just follow the links, come to the page.
We'll let you in. So episode 29, yay! You know, we've been pretty consistent with getting 2 a month, which is what I always wanted to do. And so 29 episodes. So next episode will be our 30th episode. Yay! And
it's time for our show to have a midlife crisis. No, wait, that's 40.
That's 40.
Okay.
So and anyway.
Well, I guess we have to know what number 30 is going to have to be. We're going to have to do Logan's Run. We're going to have to do Logan's Run, the TV show, the comic book, the movie. We're going to have to do Logan's Run. There's no choice.
Yeah, you're right. Fuck, I'm not going to have time to go through the TV series because we got Gen Con coming up. So I'll do what I can. So we'll see.
Put it on some dice. Play it on a device. Play it on the plane.
I wish I could rip it down on my iPad, but the only thing I've been watching recently on the iPad is I was up in last week. I was up in Dayton, Ohio for work. So I had True Detective, so I rewatched True Detective again. So,
oh yeah,
what a great fucking show. Anyway, so that's I guess it could be apocalyptic itself. So, all right, so top 5. So we're gonna do our top 5 favorites.
Wait, plugging products.
Okay.
Because last time Clint had some post-apocalyptic murderous robots to plug.
Oh yes, how are those going?
They're coming along. I am slowly working on some alternate heads for some of the raiders, which were sort of mechanical velociraptor-like critters. So the initial one has a head that's essentially a chainsaw with sensors on it. So of other hopefully equally bloodthirsty mechanical heads for them to swap them out a little bit. They're intended to be sort of small that you field as a unit if you were to game with them, so it's nice to have a little bit of variation.
Speaking of horrible things that chew stuff up, I got to throw this out. Maybe we'll link this on the page. If somebody posted just today this picture of some ground-clearing device that is literally like on the end of a crane or the end of an armature, like you'd expect a backhoe or a steam shovel. This giant device you just put at the top of the tree, and it just eats the tree straight down. It's like a wood chipper on an arm. So, for God's sakes, you gotta have robots with wood chippers on the ends of their arms or a long neck that just drops down on people and leaves nothing but a big pile of goo and a pair of shoes. Just right down to the shoes.
I think I've seen those before in real life.
Yeah. So they just showed that. So your chainsaw head idea just went right there for me.
Cool.
I've got to announce that I got a Kickstarter going for those of you who are Call of Cthulhu fans.
Yes.
We started it.
What's that?
August 1st. We started the Kickstarter for Horrors of War. Horrors of War: A Covenant with Death. It's a World War I scenario and source book for the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. There'll be 8 scenarios, source book material, rules for air-to-air combat, equipment descriptions, weapons descriptions, a glossary, a timeline. You can find it over at Kickstarter. It's been up for this is about day 4. We're $9,000 into a $16,000 goal, so we're well on our way. We're still wrestling around with some more possible stretch goals that are going to get posted this week, because we're starting to get to the point where stretch goals will be pertinent if they're going to actually exceed the original backing amount. And we'll be hopefully putting in some new rewards. We're hoping to be able to get a affirmative answer from all of our artists so that we'll know who's willing to include the visage of one of the backers as a character in one of the illustrations, probably demonstrating how the monster works in some fashion. We already sold out all the names where people could give out some money, and at a level of $100, an NPC in the game has your name. So naturally, we were descended upon by an enormous number of Scandinavians, which was a bit of a shock, because Scandinavia is the one country not involved in World War I. So we're like, wow, no Germans bought into this? No Brits? No Australians? God damn it. All right. But don't worry, you Scandinavian bastards. There are places to put your icy hearts in this book. So don't worry, we'll find a place for you.
Minnesota.
Exactly. I can always go with the immigrant option.
Yep.
Plus, there's a great couple of cultist options that would actually work out very nicely, depending on what they're in the mood for. My favorite little bit of tidbit is I got a scenario set in Persia during World War I, and my favorite little piece of history nonsense is that the Shah of Iran, prior to World War I, the constabulary with which his sort of gendarme, his armed police force that watched over the country was a mercenary force recruited in Sweden. So Swedish mercenaries in Persia working for the Shah. The British invade Persia. They disband the Swedish gendarme because they're worried it's too German. So, aha! I've got Swedes in Persia. Top that for obscure. So please go check it out on Kickstarter. We'll throw a link into it at.
Already done.
Okay, and let's see, and that's it. That's my big project for the day. It's a 60-day Kickstarter rather than a 30, because that's going to give us time to try and work out some of the rewards levels. I'm still trying to convince my co-author that PDFs are not a tool of the devil, and if I can manage.
Let me guess who that is.
Yeah, and if I can convince him otherwise, then we will offer a full PDF of the book.
Is his initials JC? But
yes, that's very close. Very close.
PDFs are the work of the devil. So
yeah. So if we can make that happen, then we will definitely expand that option for a lot of people, and that has been a big deal. There are a lot of, despite the fact that we have a thing where at the higher reward levels, at about $60, if you go for that reward level, your shipping's included, and you get extra stuff. So if you wanted to buy the book and ship it anywhere in the world, it's $60. But if you want to go to the $60 level and have shipping included, you also get the design notes, the playtest notes, how the games ran during playtest. You also get a bunch of pre-generated characters to run the scenarios with. So I was kind of hoping that would sugar it up for some of our foreigners, but the problem is not so much shipping. The problem is the value-added tax. Those guys get nailed for $20 to $30 extra dollars on a $40 book coming into the country.
Well, it sucks to be foreigners, because that's what it's like. It's the UPS. Well, I mean, I don't mean it like that, but UPS and FedEx and the mail, it's just expensive to ship it. Period. Not even just the additional tax, Yeah. So that's why you see a lot of these Kickstarters now have Euro-friendly Kickstarters where they have like a distribution center overseas, so it's not as costly.
Well, we offered a retailer option so that retailers wouldn't feel left out for this. And at least one German retailer with an American reshipper has contacted us, and we're like, sure, you could, we'll send it to the American reshipper, but that's it, But
yeah.
They seem to be okay with that. They were happy, and certainly I hope we get more of those. I hope we get more foreign retailers, particularly in Europe, because there's so much European material in this first book.
Cool. Well, the only thing I got to plug is, of course I don't have one handy. That's figures. A couple new products I did for Dagon Industries. Again, Lovecraft stuff. I did a new Cthulhu pendant, which will be at Gen Con. And it's also available on the website right now. Plus, I got the new signs for the show. It's not up on the website yet because they're on their way to Brian and Gwen. I got the Welcome to Arkham Signs.
Very sexy. Very sexy. Make some noise so the camera looks at the sign.
Hey, camera, look at me. Look at me. Yay. It's the same as the other, same plastic. Thick. It's a thick polyurethane, 14 by 12. 4 holes to hang it up. So, so welcome to Arkham Signs. I'll have that new for Gen Con, and they'll be up on the Dagon Industries web store in the near future again.
Oh, you're not bringing any of those home. I don't know how many you're bringing, but you're not going to bring many back.
I don't know. Well, I brought 20 of the zombie shelter signs last year and sold 20 of those.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I don't like to overbring because, I hate bringing it all back, but I'm going to bring at least a couple of dozen, because we say that, oh, you're not bringing any of those home. It's like we didn't sell a fucking single one. That happens all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure that whatever price we pay, somebody will go, really? That much?
Yeah.
Is it really that much? Yes, yes, it really is.
But it's a lot more. It's a lot more themed, a lot more Lovecraftian, and of course, it's you got the cross, maybe a little crossover. People who are like, oh, Batman, Arkham, Batman, so maybe we'll get.
Yes, the answer is yes. It's Batman. But if you buy it because you think it's Arkham Asylum, you have to pay $5 more.
Yeah, of course, and we will take it from you. So that's
my Arkham Sanitarium scrubs in the booth.
If you would like.
Does that mean I can hear my Arkham Sanitarium scrubs in the booth?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that would be great. So that's our side, not show business stuff. But I don't really have anything post-apocalyptic. Anything. I've been off the radar for a while. I haven't really seen anything that interesting. The only thing I've done is I finally started playing Season 2 of the Walking Dead game by Skybound. So I've got through the first. I had to replay the entire first season because I lost my save. So I had to play the whole thing for my choices. Then I played 400 Days. Then I started playing Season 2. So they only have 4 chapters out. So I blew through those recently, last week or so, and it's the second season is just as good as the first one.
That's good to hear. I haven't picked those up yet, but. Everybody keeps giving it the thumbs up.
Oh, it's a great game. It's a decision-making game. It's kind of choose your own adventure. What decisions you make come back later. So it's pretty good. I was kind of dubious about Clementine's going to be a protagonist. I didn't know how that was going to turn out. But it's good. It's just as good as the first one. If not, there's a lot of cool stuff in that one. So so I've been playing that. So that's pretty cool.
All right. I got no Apocalypse either.
Sorry, are these the Telltale Games one we're talking about?
Yes, yeah. Telltale Games, yes.
Okay, I played the demo of the first season, but I haven't had a chance to do any more than that. But it was a load of fun. So. Oh,
it's really good. They're really good. What'd you play on the computer, Xbox?
Xbox 360. So.
Okay, cool. Oh, you got a 360, Clint?
Yep.
Are you online, like a gold member?
No, used to be gold. Now I'm just stupid silver. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll say, you should send me a friend request, but never mind. So.
Don't they do that anymore? I thought you could still do that with silver.
Well, you can do that, but we can't play online. So.
Oh, okay.
But we'll do it anyway. I still want to be your buddy on the Xbox, Clint. So.
Yeah, because we still have zombies to kill in Left 4 Dead 2. I've checked recently. There's still zombies in the game.
Is there? I thought we killed them all.
We killed a lot of zombies, but I've gone back and checked, and they seem to have come back in from somewhere else and filled the game up again.
Weird how that works.
Those zombies are a dime a dozen. I'm looking for the guy who's supplying the dimes.
Yeah, we just need to pop that guy in the head.
Exactly, and then our problems are solved.
Left 4 Dead. So.
I stole that quote from. What the hell's his name? It was a novelty song from Dr. Demento. It was the guy who's a Pencil Neck Geek.
I'm familiar with Pencil Neck Geek, but wow. I tell you what, here's what we're gonna do. Let's start the subject. Clint goes first.
What?
Clint goes first, and while Clint is loading
Whoa. We're gonna.
You have to find out where that song came from.
We're going to talk about what we're supposed to talk about on the podcast? What are you, nuts?
It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, it's Anyway, all right. So what we're talking about our top 5 favorite books. Okay. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of go around. Like we'll start with Clint, then go to Scott, then go to me. You know, I kind of loosely put mine in a top 5 order. You know, it's like I can't. I mean, I could probably say, well, this is my absolute favorite, but I just kind of put them in a loose top 5 order. So just start going. Just okay. Hey, this is my story. This is the author, the book, and talk about it a little bit. We'll all talk about it like we always do.
I really want to hear what Clint's got because he's scared. He surprised the hell out of us the last time we had him on.
Yeah,
on the road. So I say he goes first.
That's why.
First of all, like a countdown, like they always do on the top 100 machine guns of all time on the military chart. Are we doing like 100, 99, 98, or are we doing 1 and going up to 5?
I like the idea of going 5. Everyone does 5. Everyone does 4. Everyone does 3.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah,
sounds fine.
If we had some cool graphics, we could do it like the military channel too, but we're not that. We're not that sophisticated.
Nice post-apocalyptic explosions or something like that. Get a little Michael Bay action going on.
Michael Bay explosions.
Yeah. So, cool.
All right, sir, you're first.
Okay, I want to preface this with a couple of things. First of all, when I was prepping for this show after Jared asked me, I realized that a lot of the fiction that I read is actually not particularly post-apocalyptic. So I had to sort of stretch a little bit. I read a little bit of the Deathland stuff a million years ago, but I never really got into reading post-apocalyptic stuff. I did some computer gaming in it, and I watched a fair number of movies, but actually reading it, I had to sort of hunt and peck a little bit. So having said that, I guess my number 5 may not be a huge surprise, but it's Dies the Fire by S.M. Sterling.
Oh, come on! Oh, boo! I'm kicking it off.
And I'll tell you why.
Oh, wow, you just stuck a poop-covered finger right in Jared's eye. Just
I know,
right in his eye. Okay, please.
It's the bicycles. Going back to the transportation episode, remember I was talking about bicycles?
Yeah.
That's the only place I've ever seen anybody use bicycles in the post-apocalypse.
That's true.
So
very true.
As far as the rest of it, it's kind of ham-handed, and the SCA wins everything. Definitely don't. But he knows his audience and stuff like that, and it's a pretty good heartstring pulling kind of thing. But it's mostly the bicycles that was a lot of fun.
All right.
So that's my number 5, and I am now going to take a big bite of my shit sandwich.
No. That's why we're all different people, have different tastes. It's just, like I said, to me, it's just, and we talked about that book in the past, and I said it was SCA porn, and
I don't think.
No. It's not SCA porn because I've seen SCA porn. And
ew!
Please don't give Jared PTSD. Okay. All right, let's get back to something nice and that we can all agree is nice and wonderful and fuzzy, like radiation and mutation and nuclear fireballs.
Okay, sounds good.
So I will. Speaking of radiation and nuclear fireballs, I'll go with my number 5, Pat Frank's Alas, Babylon. This was written in 1959, just before the Cuban Missile Crisis, and because it was set in Florida, it was required reading in my high school. As when it was early 1980s. I graduated in '84, so somewhere in there, probably '82 or '83, we had to read Pat Frank's Alas, Babylon. We also had to read By the Waters of Babylon, which is a far future.
Yeah, I've read that one too.
Yeah, short story. But and there's a point where I was like, does everything post-apocalyptic have to have the word Babylon in it? But okay. But Alas, Babylon's about a small town community in Florida surviving the nuclear war, a limited nuclear war, at least by our 1980s standards. It's a limited nuclear war. And the sort of things that happen that reorder society, sort of changes that take place, trying to get a hold of the basic, the basic necessities of life, security, food, things like that. It's a little dated in some ways, but it was one of the very first post-apocalyptic things I ever read, and it was intended to be completely serious. There's no over-the-top action. There's action, but it's one of these things where the one time there's a shootout with some bandits who are working their area, there's an exchange of gunfire, and when they're done, sure, all the bandits are shot up, half of them are gone, and the rest is surrendering, but, characters that you were enjoying and getting to, know, they're dead as a hammer, too. It's a very gritty, very nasty vision of the war, and radiation is a very nasty part of the story.
Yeah.
Fallout and radiation. So it's extremely well done, I thought, and it's not over-the-top pulp action like the Deathlands or the Survivalist or any of those kind of things, and I highly recommend it.
Well, the Survivalist is gun-porn, so.
Yeah, yes, it is.
No, I only read Last Babylon a couple of years ago, and I didn't read it in high school. They didn't make us read that, but some of the classes read it. Ours, for some reason, didn't. So I only read it a couple of years ago, and you're right, it is very dated, but it is an excellent book. It is a very good book, I say. So, my top 5. All right, I'm going to put my top 5. I'm going to say my number 5, because I have a stack here, is, Scott may have read this one, by Sterling E. Lanner, Hiro's Journey.
Oh, you bastard.
Oh, is that on your list, Clint?
My list, yes.
Oh, yay! I like this.
I thought that would be mine because it's Canadian and everything, eh?
Well,
which reminds us, we should point out that collection of Canadian apocalypse stories I think that's finally been released.
Oh yes, yeah, I think it came out last month, didn't it?
Yeah. All I can remember is, damn it, I can't remember the publisher. I'm a bad friend. I'll look it up, but that book is out. So moving on with your top 5.
Oh, yay, okay. So this is my original copy from high school. It's got the old book smell. Yes, it is Canadian. I mean, they didn't have any toques in here, or playing hockey, so I don't know how you can identify it as Canadian.
He has a mutant moose.
He's got a moose, man.
He's got a mutant moose. Of course, it's Canadian.
I think it's called a Morse. I think it was called a Morse, but
it's
right,
a Morse.
so it is a Morse. It is set, based in Canada. It starts with 5,000 years in the future after the apocalypse. So society has a chance to really decline and start to build. The guy's a priest assassin. He's like, this professional soldier, but he's part of the church because the church is still around. He's a telepath. The moose is telepathic. He has a bear companion. The book is very Gamma World. Okay,
very.
Because you have, I think it's the Brotherhood of the Unclean. They're trying to destroy all humans. There's a lot of mutants. There's like basically it's like a traveler's guide through North America, talking about the swamps, this, that. So it's kind of like the Gamma World campaign you wanted to play right here in Hiro's Journey. There's also a second book, The Unforsaken Hiro, which came out. But it's a very good book. Again, read as a teenager. I haven't read in a long time, but yeah, it probably, I like the content, I like the characters. There's not a lot of gray area in the book because it's like he could do anything. It's like either fail or not, or succeed. So the writing isn't, super sophisticated. That being said, but it's still a very good book, very good, Gamma World-ish type of campaign. So Hiro's Journey will be my number 5 on tonight's list.
And my number 2, incidentally.
Okay, well, we'll circle back to that. And also, by the way, we were talking before is Pencil Neck Geek, song by Classy Fred Blassie.
Okay, so the song you were thinking of by Classy Fred Blassie was
Pencil Neck Geek. There's a part towards the end of the song where he's just kind of talking. He's like, they say these geeks come a dime a dozen. I'm looking for the guy who's supplying the dimes. So, yes. So I dug real deep in my geekery right there. So, all right. So that's our first round of top 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are gonna move now on to number 4. Explosions. Number 4. Yay. So we're gonna go to Clint 2. What is your number 4?
Okay. You said that this was open to short stories as well?
Yes.
Short stories, novellas, books.
One of my absolute faves for when I read it is a short story on Nightmare Online magazine called 1031 Bloody Mary. And the premise is that it's a magical apocalypse in which the world goes to hell on Halloween night. And you've got what are normally the stupid costumes and such become the monsters, and houses suddenly become haunted. Monsters prowl everywhere, and it is a very grim, bloody post-apocalyptic landscape following this skinny kid who can't get enough to eat until he meets our favorite psychopath, Bloody Mary. So it's loads of fun.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's excellent.
Excellent. See, and again, that's why I like to get other people on the show to give different perspectives, because me personally, I'm more of a nuclear, biological, magical apocalypses. That's not me. But you know what? It is a valid genre just like anything else that we all like. So it's good to get other people on the show to get these other perspectives, because things we may not talk about. Because again, I don't know everything. I haven't read everything. I don't know everything. Neither does Scott. So again, thank you for bringing something to the plate that we would not have brought, and we brought it out there.
Do you know who the author is, and do you know where?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's the author's name is Norman Partridge.
Okay.
And I'm just looking to see. It's in the. Sorry, they don't have them listed in their back catalog, online back catalog, but you can search the online magazine for it. Anyway, either by 1031 Bloody Mary or Norman Partridge. So it shouldn't be that hard to find.
Good, good. That's my main concern is some of these, for something that obscure, we got to help people find it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it shouldn't be that hard to find. I found it in about a 30-second search. So, but the nice thing is that I know Jared is a big fan of very bleak situations, and this is a very bleak situation, but it uses very Halloween-y kids tropes in a very twisted and bleak way, which is a nice sort of juxtaposition to use a 25-letter word. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a completely different take, and it's like, oh, yeah, that's not a bad idea, because all those things that you think are just, oh, it's all for fun. Oh, my God, this Superman mask and jumpsuit is like eating me or something, whatever, or some guy in remember the old 70s Halloween costumes were just like, look, I'm Superman, and on my smock they give me is got a picture of Superman on, so I'm Superman,
Oh, I hated those costumes as a kid, where you get the shitty mask, and then you're wearing a poster?
Yep.
How is this a costume, God damn it? I've been ripped off.
I think I could find there's a stack in my closet of old photos my mom had. I think there's one of me in an underdog costume like that. So
okay, you win.
I'm gonna have to find that for Throwback Thursday this week. See if I can dig that bitch up.
Holy shit! All right. Number 4.
Scott, number 4 for Scott.
Number 4. All right. Now this was a tough one for me because, but I decided to go with John Wyndham's "The Day of the Triffids."
Very nice.
And I've got this rather old copy here of "The Day of the Triffids." Whoop, let's go this way. And this book represented my first foray into British apocalypse. All right. And the Brits do a damn fine apocalypse. Wyndham's the first guy, but later I came across John Christopher's No Blade of Grass and his The Long Winter. The Long Winter. And it was kind of a toss-up which one of these three I would pick as my number 4. But Triffids has been around the block. Triffids has been a movie. It's been 2 TV series now. It's been a comic book. Triffids has got some mileage on it, and it was the first one I read as far as my intro to British Apocalypse.
And let me add to your collection of what Day of the Triffids is going to be. Big Finish Productions, who just did the Survivors Season 1, next year they're doing the Triffids. Not retelling the original story, a continuation after the story, where they go to the Isle of Wight, so it's going to continue on after that. And they're doing so they're doing audio books for a continuation of Day of the Triffids.
Very nice. Very nice. So Triffids, for those, I don't know, I'll say it for those who don't know, Triffids is a combination of 2 apocalypses. Spoiler alert, number one, it's the blindness apocalypse, which was so completely fucked up that the only thing between us and being walking fertilizer are our fucking eyeballs. And when the population loses that, it's horrifying. Not the least of which because, unlike everyone getting sick and dying, it's this very slow. There's plenty of time to panic. There's plenty of time to be violent and weird, and pathetic simultaneously. Despite losing their eyes, the people around you still have their smarts and still have their skills, and can be, and if you're one of the sighted, how do you handle this disaster? And then on top of that, the Triffids show up, who back in the book's from 1957, I think. Let me see.
Right around there.
Yeah, 1951, ladies and gentlemen. Way back then, the Triffids are the new biodiesel, a plant that we've created to harvest an oil that's going to replace OPEC and replace petroleum and all that kind of good stuff. Something that we've created to deal with our petrochemical addiction is going to escape from the farms they're raised on and come out and give us newly blinded meat bags, sightless meat bags, a run for our money as far as who's going to be in charge of the planet. And it was absolutely terrifying. It was never played for laughs. It was never goofy. You never think of the plants as goofy or weird. They're fully realized as a monster, with its rules and its weaknesses and its strengths, like a vampire or a werewolf or any other mythological creature that's well developed. Triffids get my number 4 spot.
And the BBC made a good miniseries out of it as well.
In the 80s. Now they redid it. They redid it recently, and all the Triffids were CGI.
Of course.
That was maybe my biggest grognard complaint was, oh no, the cartoons are attacking. But that 1980s one is
golden.
Choice. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. I got it on my shelf. It's great. So Scott's number 4, Day of the Triffids. Good choice. My number 4. And again, I was deciding which way to go with this. I'm going to bring back something from 1986. I was in a mall, and I was walking through the bookstore. I was in New York at the time visiting my cousins from Florida because I was already moved down here. And I was looking for post-apocalyptic books in the bookstore, like I often did in the 80s. And I came across a little book called Pilgrimage to Hell, Deathlands. Okay, now I'm not going to go with the whole series as the cover. I'm going with just specifically Pilgrimage to Hell, the first book in the series. Okay, because as we know, and we know my opinion about how after James Axler had passed away and other people started ghostwriting for it, it went to the fucking shitter, in my opinion. Now I know. Clint knows, Chris Van Deelen will disagree with me on that because he knows the guy who wrote a lot of those stories. Not as good, and he purposely kind of drove it into the ground too to kind of get out of it to do his own series, which is fine. That's his choice. But Deathlands, Pilgrimage to Hell, post-apocalyptic story. Takes, happens right around the late 80s. There is a bomb that goes off in Washington and starts this chain reaction. The book takes place 100 years later. Now, why I like this book was there's just enough of the weird and unusual in it to make it to where, whereas like, Hiro's journey is like telepaths and mutants and all over the place, whereas Deathlands has that kind of stuff, but it's not, well, I mean, you had Stickies and you had Scalies, but they were just more like, they just seemed more like, just radiation burned mutants. There was some telepathy, but just the book is like this group of people with the traders. This guy had these war wagons. They were all grouped together. They drove around the country, ravaging, cities they could find. They could dig up spot readouts, just dig up all this ancient junk to trade to people. So he would drive around doing that. And they picked up other characters along the way, Ryan Cowder. I mean, the book started off great because it didn't turn into, after it just turned into serialized, just regurgitating of the same fucking thing over and
over. In a lot of ways,
it's
the same book over and over again.
Yeah, but the first one started all was fan-fucking-tastic because it was kind of like it's like a light Gamma World campaign as far as I'm concerned, or something like you could play with like Aftermath. Like there's just enough of the unusual, but not totally over the top. There's like these readouts, these technologies. There's like these matter transmitter units. So very cool. It would be the light Gamma World campaign I'd want to play.
Now, a question for you: does the redoubts and the matter transmit, does that show up in
the first book?
In the first book, okay. I couldn't tell. I remember if it was the first book or if it was Red Holocaust, which is the second.
No, that was their first jump. But
okay,
towards the end of the book, because they find Doc, they find one of these characters who's a man from the past. So it's got all these really cool things about it. They fight this mist, So it's got some unusual stuff. There's these high-tech installations where they have these matter transmitters, and they can jump throughout the country. It's a plot device to kind of get them around the country, but it works, and it slowly reveals more and more of the mystery of why.
Oh hell, it gets them around the world. One of my favorites is.
And spoiler alert, it gets them off world too. But it is a plot, but they only give little bits out of the mystery. Like who are the scientists? What is Project Serapis? What is Project Overlord? What is going on? But they don't still throw it out there. They just give you little bits at a time. And the problem happened was towards the end they just started just dumping the shit out there. Different people were writing it, so somebody would pick up a cool idea, and then nobody would ever pick it up again. And then, unfortunately, when they came out with Outlanders, they just go, okay, here's the answer to everything, just fucking threw it out there. I'm like, oh, that fucking ruined everything. I liked that there was a little bit of mystery to it, like, well, why is it there?
Once you're inside the redoubts and you're moving around inside the redoubts, you got the impression that whatever had happened to the world was connected with the redoubts. The war, the big death, or whatever it's called, was connected to whoever built the redoubts, whoever built the transmat system. You know what I mean?
And it happened fast, and it happened unknowingly because they're all empty. Like they didn't have a chance to use the fucking things.
Yeah.
So the first book in the series, Pilgrimage to Hell, in my top 5. Great book, get you started. And the series does go well for a while. I mean, there's like 100 books now. But I'd say at least through the first couple of dozen, they're very good. There's some good stories, some good post-apocalyptic. Again, it's light on the wahoo, but there is a little wahoo in there. You gotta have a little wahoo in your apocalypse, but it's not over the top. It's a very it's a good solid book to start with. So that's my number 4. It's originally Jack Adderin, which was it was just a pen name, but it was written by. Actually, no, it was written by somebody else. Then James Axler picked it up. That was a pen name for. I can't remember his real name now, but.
Shame.
I know. It's I gotta remember like a fucking sieve now, man. I could certain things I remember, certain things I don't. So.
Okay, more base explosions.
Number 3. Boom.
3. You're up, Clint.
All right. I don't know if this actually qualifies because technically it's not a post-apocalypse, it's an apocalypse. But I think it's so iconic and so good that it has to be in here to be discussed, and that's War of the Worlds.
Ooh, that's not a terrible idea. That's a really good idea.
There's just I don't know if there would be a post-apocalyptic genre if H.G. Wells had not written War of the Worlds. It's just that iconic, and so many of the tropes that are entrenched in post-apocalypse, you find them in War of the Worlds, and so I think it deserves to be in there. So it's got the desperation, it's got the loss, personal loss, and national loss, and loss of world. And the only thing that keeps it from being post-apocalypse, of course, is the common cold, and everybody knows that. But but it's still just too fantastic to ignore in the current circumstance. So that's me being defensive.
Oh no! You don't get the what's his name? Derry Gerald doesn't get to do his couture stuff, his alien apocalypse. Who's it? NBC TNT doesn't get to do Falling Skies.
Yeah.
Without H.G. Wells going there first.
Yeah, there's just so many things that if the post-apocalypse genre had evolved in its absence, I think it would have been fundamentally different.
Hell, I don't think we get tripods. Tripods always felt like the War of the Worlds generations on, living under the Martian occupation.
Actually, in a lot of ways, is the same story. So
what is?
Day of the Triffids, in a lot of ways, is the same story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you pare it down to the essentials, so that's me.
That's very cool. I'll give that the thumbs up. Now we're in dangerous territory, I think, for Jared and I, because we're in danger of stepping on all the same books, because there are.
Also, I wanted to just add one of our viewers. I think it's who is it? I can't remember his real name. I think it's God. He's a I can't. He's one of our. He's watches the show a lot, comments a lot. He had a comment that Deathland needs a good movie that is not that shit one that Sci-Fi Channel made. I agree 100%. We talked about that shit one that Sci-Fi Channel made. It would make a good series. That would be something that would be good for TNT, somebody like that, to put a good series.
Yes, they just need to go out and rent the goddamn Landmaster off of whoever owns it. Repaint it a little bit and start shooting. That would work.
So yes, he just made that comment. I wanted to just acknowledge that. Yes, we agree. So, all right. So now, like Scott said, yeah, dangerous territory. I'm sure we're going to see some overlap coming up real soon.
I would think.
Now the problem is, but the one I'm going to go with for my number 3 is my favorite far future apocalypse. There's a number. Jared's got a number of books that he's pointed out to me, like Hero's Journey, The Unrequited Hero. There's a couple of books called Through Darkest America that sort of fall into that same category as very far future post-apocalypse. Now, the Hero's Journey stuff gets very fantasy world, with its mutants and stuff. It starts to look a little bit like Bakshi's Wizards at some point.
Yeah.
And I'm looking over my shoulder at my bookshelf over here. Can you guys still hear me when I'm talking?
Mm-hmm.
All right, but and so there's things like Through Darkest America, which is one that I've always been partial to, and it had a sequel, which I am not recalling. What was the one that you pointed out to me, Jared? The one where the Americans and the Russians are still fighting, but America is ruled by some sort of king-like president. The sun and the moon.
The Steel, the Mist, and the Blazing Sun.
Yeah, the Steel, the Mist, and the Blazing Sun. That's all super far future post-apocalyptic worlds where the world that we know now is only a dimly remembered myth of the apocalyptic world. And my all-time favorite for that is Jack McDevitt's Eternity Road.
I haven't got to that one yet, but that's on my list.
Yeah. Eternity Road, I think I'd throw it as my favorite far future, very far future after the apocalypse. It is also an apocalypse that takes place in our future, which I kind of like. I've always been intimidated by the idea that, much like Gamma World, the apocalypse has happened, but it happened 100 years from now, 200 years from now. I mean, that's right there with Fallout, the Fallout series. You know, that they've set the apocalypse in a future itself, so you can have all kinds of wacky things like artificial intelligence or maglev trains or things like that. And Eternity Road is essentially the idea that our civilization is gone, new civilization has grown up in the same basic area, and a group of explorers and academics are going on a quest, following the old roads used to be, or the old freeway and highway system was.
Well, they call them the road makers.
Yeah, that's what they call the ancients. You know,
Yep.
I guess it's the ancients in Gam World. It's the road makers, the road builders in Eternity Road, and they're following these roads north in an attempt to find essentially a vault filled with the knowledge of the past that is sort of legendary. But on the way, they're having kind of a Marco Polo / Lewis and Clark rediscovery of North America as they encounter examples of the past and also examples of the new societies that have grown up in the interim.
Yeah, there's
Go
ahead.
No, I was just saying that there are different tech levels and different societies that live separate from each other. I want to say one group they ran across had steam power. One group had figured out hot air balloons or something. Another group, they came from an area around Texarkana, the Missouri Mississippi area.
Yeah.
Which is a big area, very populous, but not as technologically advanced as what they find in some areas of the Northeast. Certain areas are even more barbarous, like the pirate kingdoms of the Great Lakes.
Yep.
You run into. And of course, all these examples of the past and dangers from the past, I was very impressed with.
Oh yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit more too, because I'll talk a little bit about it too when I get to that. But there's some really cool shit.
I will stop talking about the book now because Jared can finish up with it. He's going to touch on it again. So that's my number 4.
3. Or that's
3. You got it. 3.
3.
That's 3. Sorry, yeah. It's Triffids Babylon and Eternity Road.
Okay. All right, my number 3 is by again another one of those authors like John Christopher, who did multiple books on the genre. Andrea Nort.
Okay.
Now it's by Andrea Nort, and it's not the one you're thinking. I know you're probably thinking I'm going to say Daybreak 2150 or Starman's Son. Nope, not talking about that one. Yeah, they wrote another book called No Night Without Stars.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You're familiar with that one, Clint?
Yep.
No Night Without Stars. I only read this book recently, like in the last year or two. Just discovered it. Great. It is a great book. It is again one of these Gamma World-esque type books because it's set in the very far future. Though it's not all full of mutants and crazy people, but there's basically barbarous societies, nomads, fishing villages, and there's this one guy in it who is trying to find these areas of the ancients. They know there's ancient technology. They know there's stuff waiting for them. But he's a bit of a blasphemer. Talking like that. He's a bit of a heretic. So he kind of goes out to try to find these things that are out there. These ancient technologies. Because this is set hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years in the future. So there's not much left. There's some ancient ruins. But it's Gamma World in the respect that he finds this other person. There is some there is a little bit of telepathy, some mutant power, some empathy, but not crazy. But they do find basically a cybernetic installation in this book, and the cybernetic installation is basically what you think would happen to a cybernetic installation who's been all by itself for centuries upon centuries upon centuries. Okay, so it's again very cool because they have the primitive society that you would start off with in a Gamma World campaign and finding the technology, finding the cybernetic installation. So I think that's a real, because again it felt very Gamma World to me. So you kind of notice a theme here, but That is a good book. It's that's a book I don't have a physical copy of because I found it as an ebook. I haven't seen a physical copy of it, but that's another one I recommend. So No Night Without Stars by Andrea Nort. Again, very Gamma World-esque in its writing and its setting, which again I favor. That would be my number 3.
I think I read that when I was in my early 20s, and it's. So
you read that a long time ago then?
Yes, a good long time ago. When you were like, I don't know if you were even born then, Jared.
Yeah. I am the young one here, aren't I?
You've been spanked by your elders. You just look old.
I know. Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm 45 and I'm the baby here. Okay, that's sad. Okay.
What I was going to say though is that I'm glad you recapped No Night Without Stars because I was sitting there going, nodding along, smiling because I went, yeah, I love that book, and damned if I could remember one effing thing about it. So, evidently, I need to find the Kindle version and read that again because it has been a long, long time.
Yeah, I just read that in the last year and a half.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened to my physical copy, but we've moved 3 or 4 times since then, so there's no way I have the book anymore.
Yeah, I want to try to track down an actual physical copy because I'm not big on keeping big shelves of dust collecting books anymore like I used to. Like I've gotten rid of shelves and shelves of books. But when it comes to my post-apocalyptic books, though, those I like to have physical copies of wherever I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So number 2. Explosion, 2.
Well, as you know, you stole my fire with Hero's Journey. So I'd like to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Just because I read it, I think either the year it came out or the year after it came out when I was 14, something like that. And it was probably among the first 5 or 6 science fiction, fantasy, and I think it was probably the second post-apocalyptic book that I'd ever read. And it totally opened my eyes to the fact that Canada could exist in science fiction. It was like, people talk about Star Trek and people of color got to have a future because Uhura was in Star Trek, and it hadn't occurred to me until I read Hero's Journey that Canada could exist in the future. Until then, it was all watching movies and shit from the U.S. So
well, the fact that Canada can exist in the future is definitely science fiction.
Oh!
Sorry,
we're already in the future, so
there you go.
But I love the idea that you could have a Métis hero because the Métis locally, the Métis are and Indigenous peoples generally are not given as much respect as they ought to be, as they ought to get. And so I thought it was great that in the future you could have a really cool Métis hero who was aware of his heritage and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed at that time at least the fantasy aspect of it. I liked the idea of the telepathic critters and the Lemutes from Lethal Mutations and that kind of stuff. So it worked for me at the time, and I just picked up another an electronic copy, and I'm rereading it, and I'm still liking it. So.
Oh yeah, no, it's a great book, and like you said, the Indigenous folks, it's like that in Canada is just like here in America, how the Indigenous people, these dirty Indians, like what do they want from us? Like, well, they want their fucking country because we came in and with bigger guns and conquered them.
Well, let's not forget that I always love the idea of the dirty Indians. You remember which group came in loaded with horrible diseses? It wasn't like the Pilgrims showed up and the Indians sneezed on them and they all fell over dead. It was, kind of the other way around.
Yep.
Again, what was the thing? Undocumented immigrants who refused to learn the local language, and yet they still get food assistance. That's pretty much the Pilgrims.
So
my number 2. Jared's number 5, my number 2. So.
Okay, but that's cool that we had the little crossover there. So, yep. Scott, you're number 2.
All right. This is a tough one. I'm going to have to go. Did we agree that we were going to have kind of a special shout-out for an oddball? at the end of this?
Yes.
Okay, because in that case, I think I'm going to have to go with David Brin's The Postman. You'll notice that I'm covering Kevin Costner's face because, unfortunately, the only copy I currently have is one that has the crappy movie poster on it. But yeah, David Brin's The Postman, which started off as like 2 novellas and then became sort of linked together. It is one of my all-time favorite, definitely one of my all-time favorite post-apocalyptic novels. Not the least of which because of the literary thing they did where they turned survivalist porn on its head.
Yes.
There's so much post-apocalyptic stuff I've read up till now, like The Survivalist, like Deathlands, like what was that one? Survival 2000, which is another one you got for me, Jared. Thank you very much.
Well, so again, Survival 2000 was also done by James Axler. It's
Yeah.
a three-part little story. Gun porn, gun porn, gun porn from like the first fucking page.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, this whole idea that if you are a survivalist, you are and the blank in the ashes stories. You know, all that danger in the ashes, terror in the ashes, revenge in the ashes. All those, was his name Johnstone? All those, yeah.
Ashes in the ashes.
The ashes in the ashes. Yeah, all those stories where if you are a survivalist and have spent 25 to 30% of your income stocking your house with survival supplies and training in Krav Maga and reading the SS, you are morally superior to the rest of your neighbors who spend their money on orthodontia for their kids and possibly a trust fund to get them to go to college or whatever, or pay your house note, or repair the holes in the roof or whatever, or buy a nicer car or a cooler stereo system. You are now morally superior to these people. And what Brin did was take that kind of people who aren't just preparing for the end, but dreaming of it. They're the frustrated. If you read Eric Hoffer's The True Believer, about how mass movements start, one of the types of people he talks about is the so-called the frustrated, the people who are so unhappy with the world the way it is now, they would rather live in a fantasy world of the way it could be, whether you are hoping for the rapture or you are hoping for an apocalypse so that, you know, all those bigwigs who have more than you will be laid low and you will now be the king of the new world. That creepy mindset that you find every time you go to a gun show was turned on its head in The Postman, and those guys were the problem. Those guys are not the savior of civilization because they are the enemies of civilization. And that moment right there really got me. I really liked that turn of the genre, and that's what always sold me on The Postman, almost more than anything else.
Very good. Yeah, true. No, it's all true. Yeah, like you have all those, like you said, Survivalist, The Ashes, isn't it CADS, End World. You know, there's so much garbage series out there. So, all right. So that's Scott.
For myself, that I discounted the idea of picking up the book after the movie came out, and I probably should not have done that.
Oh
no!
That book is very different than the movie.
We gotta point out to you that the we gotta point out to you that they kept the title, and they kept the job that he does at the beginning of the book, going from town to town, putting on plays and things for like a minstrel. They kept the part about, yes, he starts doing the post thing, but and maybe they kept the name of the bad guys, but they threw the rest of it out the window. It is absolutely worth your time. I think you will chew a hole right through that book if you pick it up. I highly recommend it.
There's two problems with that book, with the movie. Number one being Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Number two, it's 3 fucking hours.
Yeah. Yeah, and in 3 hours, you think they could have done every single thing that happened in the book, but they do about, what, 25%?
Oh, I'd say maybe 15. But
yeah.
But it anyway. So it's Postman. Scott's number 2.
2.
My number 2. Which I'm surprised I haven't seen on Scott's list yet, and it may be his number 1. I don't know. We'll see. Is a little book by a gentleman named Larry Niven, Lucifer's Hammer. I could smell the old. Again, this is my old copy. This is my copy from the 80s. Lucifer's Hammer. Excellent book. It is a during the apocalypse book, like the apocalypse, pre it happens and what's going on afterwards. There is a giant comet in the solar system that's coming through, and it's supposed to pass by Earth, but it doesn't quite do that. It hits Earth, and they call the comet Lucifer's Hammer. Everybody thought it wasn't going to hit us, but it did. I just remember them looking for the story, looking through telescopes, seeing chunks of the asteroid of the comet being the size of mountains. That it was just this monstrosity of a comet that Earth passed through, and just it hit enough spots in the ocean to create tsunamis and giant floods and raise the level of the water in the Earth. So it was this total post-apocalyptic novel, and it takes place the before, during, and after. It's been a while since I read it, so Scott could always chime in if I'm getting something wrong. The protagonist wasn't he like a reporter or something? Or no, there was a scientist, and then there's a reporter.
Yeah, we follow a bunch of characters. It's an ensemble giant disaster movie plot.
Yeah.
With lots of different characters to follow. You even follow the bad guys. You even follow and see how they become bad guys.
Yeah, so it covers everybody. The one scientist guy is really smart. One of my favorite lines, which comes from this book, is tells you what a proper piece of beef jerky is. Okay, a proper piece of beef jerky is something that you could sharpen the end. You could file the end to a point and kill a man with it. That's good beef jerky. So the book follows all these different plot lines. A lot of main characters, the bad guys, there's a lot of flooding, and people start to group together for survival, and there's these bad guys roaming through the countryside, and it comes to a head with a large battle. So again, it is very disaster movie kind of ensemble, but it's a very good book. Covers a lot of things, a lot of interesting things, a lot of things to think about, especially if the scientist is very smart. And a lot of the things he talks about in an apocalyptic situation, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this, And it deals with all the things I got to deal with just for survival during this initial period. It's really, a lot of it's kind of like it's still happening, because, there's a lot of rain because of the water that got thrown up, and, what people are doing to survive. I won't reveal too much about it, but this came out, when did this come out? This came out in the 70s.
77. I just looked it up.
Yeah, and like I said, my copy's fallen apart here because I've read it a couple of times, but it's definitely worth your read. It's a pretty it's like about 650 pages, so it's a decent sized novel. It's definitely worth your time. Very interesting, very during the apocalypse. So it's most of my stuff is kind of after the apocalypse, but this one's during the apocalypse, which I really like, because you see what's happening, how they're dealing with it, and everything that they do. Like I said, it covers one of the tropes that they always do in post-apocalyptic scenarios. I'll let you guys figure out. We've talked about it 1,000 times, how they always talk about it in movies. Is addressed in here, but it's an interesting way they deal with it, or they talk about it, like why they do it, So number 2, Lucifer's Hammer by Larry Niven.
Cool.
So now we are, drum roll please, explosions.
Down to our number 1s.
Now to our number 1s. I think, wait,
we would have a recap at this point where we'd go through number 5, number 4, to have
You just have to drag that shit out.
Come back from the commercial break, right? So.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to drag it out because we're hitting on an hour, so I want to try to keep going. So we've talked about our top 4. We've talked about 4 of our top 5 post-apocalyptic books, short stories, and novellas. We are going to now be talking about, after this commercial break, our number 1 post-apocalyptic book. Clint,
really,
to you.
you're a little too good at that to make me feel completely comfortable. Thank God there's a continent between us.
So, Clint, what is your numero uno?
Well, this is sort of a personal favorite for me because I read this book. It wasn't brand new when I read it, but I read it in 1971 when I was a kid, and it was the very first book that I can think of that was what you would call a genre book. Prior to that, I had been reading primarily like hockey fiction and shit like that as a 10-year-old.
I'm gonna wait a minute.
Wait, hockey fiction.
Hockey fiction. Yeah, you know.
Is that what they have in Canada? It's like hockey, mooses, and poutine. That's the fiction.
Well, I mean, very rarely can someone write those with all of those things together in one book and not make it sound bad, you know. But when you can put hockey, mooses, and poutine in the same book, that's gold.
Wow. All right. Got it.
But this book doesn't have any of those things. This is, as Jared alluded to earlier, this is Daybreak 2250 AD, which is how I knew it anyway. Starman's Son is how it was, I think, originally published. I think it came out in 1952 or 53 or something like that. So wasn't a brand new book when I read it, but it was the sort of a life-changing book for me because I'd never heard of science fiction before or fantasy books before, and I thought it was wicked cool. And of course, it's very Gamma World, and there's telepathic giant Siamese cats and bestial-headed mutants and all of that good stuff. So, you know.
What's not to like?
Well, that's what I thought. So.
All right. Let's see. I guess we're on to my number one. Jared already.
Let's see. I'm trying to pull up here for Starman's Son. First published in 1952, Starman's Son was published.
Yeah, I was right.
Yep.
Cool.
Lucifer. I'm gonna go with my number one is Lucifer's Hammer.
Yeah, I knew that was gonna be your number one. I just knew it.
It does the apocalypse right on so many levels.
Yeah.
Because it shows you the world before, it shows you the world, what's going on during, and then afterwards it does this thing where it really contracts the vision down to the personal level. There's this great part in the there's so many extremely well written, compelling parts of it, but there's this one thing that they do during the Hammerfall, where you get all of these horrifying vignettes of what's happening. There's the police officer who goes down to the LA County Jail to kill the serial killer. There's a guy who's murdered some girl because, well, if the comet's coming, it doesn't matter what I do, so I might as well kill her, you know, and rape her. He's down in the jail cells, and the cop goes down there to murder him just because he can't take the chance that somebody like that might survive. You know, it's like the tidal waves are coming towards LA. Maybe you'll be drowned, maybe you won't, but I got to make sure that no matter what, you don't walk away from this. And the mission to go down there and kill him with the shotgun actually means that guy, I don't think you don't ever hear from that cop again in the story. I don't think he gets out of the LA basin in time, but he's got to make sure that this guy does not get out. There's that thing with the surfers.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Who decided to catch the last great wave that's gonna go all the way to downtown Los Angeles. You know? That's horrifying. But then they pull back, and you get these weird little vignettes in that sort of happen in italics, where it's somebody to give a description like cubic miles of water have been vaporized, and the rain clouds encircle the earth. Cold fronts form along the base of the Himalaya Massif, and rainstorms sweep through the southeastern India, northern Burma, and Chinese Yunnan and Sichuan provinces. And it describes the effects of the hammer strike. And it goes around, and there's like descriptions of, the seas are receding from England, like England just goes underwater, except for the Scottish Highlands and some hill country in Wales. And you get this very God's eye view during the Hammerfall and just after. And one of the things that really gets me for that is once the hammer has passed, you don't really get those those world view vignettes anymore. It's just down to surviving in your 5 square feet of problem.
Well, yeah, because they were setting the stage to let you know this is what happened to the world. Now we're going to tell you. Now we're going to tell you some stories about individuals.
Yeah, but you get here is the description that is certainly a little bit apropos to the current situation in the area it describes. As they're describing tidal waves in the Mediterranean, or it's not so bad in the Mediterranean because Gibraltar holds off most of the tsunamis.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
But they get this one paragraph. Further to the east, the Palestinians and the Israelis suddenly realize there are no great powers capable of intervening. This time, the war will go to a conclusion. The remnants of Israel, Jordan, Syria, and Saudi Arabia are on the march. There are no jet planes and little fuel for tanks. There will be no ammunition resupply, and the war will not end until it is fought with knives. That pretty much sums that area of the world up for me. Yeah. That was one of the most cold, chilling things in the whole thing. Just one paragraph, and all I can think is, well, thank goodness our heroes were in southern Washington, northern Oregon, not in Jeddah or Jaffa or or Jericho or any place in the Holy Land. Lucifer's Hammer is a apocalypse that does not depend on politics, in that it's not the dirty Reds nuked us, or America is such a warmongering country that we started the war first. There's none of that sort of 80s vintage political, this is your fault, this is going to be their fault, or it's our fault. This is literally a galactic road accident. And so there's nobody's fault, but, the disaster does strip away the veneer of civilization, and people begin acting very badly in the wake of it. Lucifer's Hammer is one of my all-time favorites, and that ensemble cast and all the different viewpoints, it really reminds me very much of what Stephen King did later in The Stand.
Yep.
Okay, where you get this huge ensemble of characters and perspectives to see the apocalypse. And I would almost have put The Stand in here, but Lucifer's Hammer bumps it out every time, because firstest, it's there. Jerry Purnell and Larry Niven are there firstest with the mostest.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. Because I rarely reread books, but this is one of the books that I've actually reread a couple of times. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Now my number one book it was on Scott's list. Was it 3 or 4? Eternity Road.
Eternity Road. Yes.
So Eternity Road is my number one. Okay. Again, this is like I said, a recent novel for the apocalypse, which I liked. I'm trying to see. I'm looking here. It was published in well, it's not that recent, but it was published in '97. So when I read it at the time in the late '90s, it was because everything we've read here is like 70s, 60s, 50s. Everything's very old. So this came out in the late '90s. I was like, oh, a new apocalyptic novel. Okay, let me check this out. Again, Eternity Road. Again, far future. And so we talked about a lot of it already was, we have these different pockets of civilization, and they call the ancients the road makers, because out of everything that survived in the apocalypse, the roads were still there to some extent. That was their legacy, the roads. They called them the road makers because, they make these roads. So they follow the roads. They're in the Mississippi. There's a lot of trade up and down the river. That's their main bit of travel. And like I said, it's an exploration, because there's this guy who's trying to find this ancient vault of knowledge so they could advance themselves even further. He comes back with a message, and then they go out to finish the journey from his uncle or something like that. I think it was his uncle.
The guy comes back and dies, and all he leaves is his partial journal.
His journal. And the journal's fascinating because a lot of the things that they describe, he would sketch it and they describe it. Oh, it's a this, that, and the other. and you're like, okay, and then when they counter, it's like, oh, that's so fucking cool. Okay, it's cool to the way that they take it from a view of not knowing what it is, and how would somebody who not knows what it is describe it? So they do a very good job with that, I think, in this book.
There's a Call of Cthulhu scenario. I want to just throw this out. That's from their Strange Aeons collection, Strange Aeons 2. Actually, I will hold up the product for anyone who wants to find Strange Aeons 2. And it's it's Call of Cthulhu scenario set in different time periods. But David Manna, who is a Italian paleontologist, wrote a story called Cursed Be the City, which takes place in Neanderthal times. And half the fun of the scenario is that you're Neanderthals, and you're encountering a pre-human civilization with cities and buildings and things. So how do you describe a building to a guy who lives in a cave? You know? And that's what that magic is definitely what happens.
Oh, yeah.
Eternity Road. Just trying to describe high-tech devices to guys who are like in the 1700s level of technology?
Maybe. You know, they got farming and water and stuff like that. And we won't reveal any of those, what's in here, but they encounter these things, they encounter some technology, which is interesting. And there's, I don't want to spoil it, but it's this one little, it's like a paragraph in the story. Because they show things like airfields, okay, and just the jets, there's rows of jets, you know, how they're just abandoned there. A lot of high technology, radar stations, you know, like satellite dishes, like giant satellite dishes, because, I don't know, to me, there's nothing says the ruins of civilization than a giant, just decaying satellite dish, because this is, you know...
Oh, you mean like an Arecibo deep space antenna?
Giant antennas, yeah. There was actually some stations like that up in Maryland, but they've been torn down. I didn't get a chance to get there and check them out. But so yeah, there's a lot of that in the story. There's a really cool thing dealing with. I'll just hint at it, dealing with satellite dishes. So it's a really cool thing. I love that part of the story. So it's just neat how the things they encounter. It's just a really good book because it's a little more modern. It's not written. You know, it's not, again, it doesn't have to really have anything to do with the Cold War or anything like that, like those 80s books we read. And they don't really describe it, but it's a good adventure, just the way they describe things, and the end result, the payoff. It's a very cool story. So, Eternity Road, readily available. That is my number one pick. Now, what we wanted to do, this last thing, we're going to go through this quick, is we talked about maybe throwing an oddball story or an honorable mention. Do you have a story, Clint, that might be like an oddball one that somebody might not know, kind of obscure, or just something that you think it should get an honorable mention because it didn't quite make your top 5, but it's something you like as well?
Well, yeah, I actually was going to throw The Stand on my list, but I decided that it was not really post-apocalyptic, and so I thought I was already pushing the envelope with War of the Worlds being sort of a during, so I left The Stand off. But I really enjoyed The Stand, so that would be my my number 6 pick. Although I don't know if it's actually number 6 in my count. If you know.
We'll call it honorable mention. We'll call it.
Okay. For Captain Trips alone, it should get honorable mention, just for the best name of a disease that wipes out civilization, where they personalized the disease. King did a good job with that. Captain Trips becomes a character.
Yeah, but I throw the Captain Trips out all the time. That term when I'm not feeling well, I post, I think I got the Captain Trips or whatever. So, Scott, what's going to be your honorable mention?
All right. There was a series edited by Jerry Purnell, the guy who brought us, one of the 2 guys who brought us Lucifer's Hammer. And its series was called There Will Be War.
Oh, I vaguely remember that.
All right. Now, this was from the 1980s.
Of course.
Of course it was. And it was all military sci-fi. 1989 is on this one. Now, this is Volume 8. And beginning in Volume 8, this series of stories started getting printed, and the last volume is, let's see, sorry, 7, 8, and 9. Those are the 3 volumes I wanted. Volume 9, I think, is the last one they ever did. This was titled After Armageddon. 8 was Armageddon, and 7 was Call to Battle. In the start of these, there was a story by a guy named Don Hawthorne, Hawthorne, Don Hawthorne. He wrote a story called Iron Angel, and it was continued in the next book under a short. The next book or a short story in this series was The Benefactors, and the last one in Armageddon was called The Contract. All 3 of them follow the same world and the same group of characters. It is set in a world of the shambles of World War III. The Soviet Union apparently, and it's set amongst Soviet characters. The main characters are combat engineers in the Red Army, and they are really on the losing end of something called the Global War for Liberation, the basic Soviet attack on everything, which has gone very badly for the Soviet Union. There's descriptions that there's a huge alliance of states that has fought the Soviet Union, and once they got into the USSR, and there was battles in Moscow as well. They got as far as Moscow. The Soviets have released something called the gas bug. It's the first time I ran into this in science fiction. It's a bacteria that was designed to eat crude oil and clean up oil spills. The Soviets have modified it to devour petroleum, including refined petroleum products. It was designed to kill refined petroleum, but now it's altered and it's eating the petroleum out of the ground. It's actually getting into the ground and devouring petroleum. There's all these things you have to do to preserve the petroleum, but only the Soviets know how to do that. So they went from being on the ropes, about to fail completely, to suddenly all the armies that were attacking the Soviet Union are marooned. And their home countries have fallen apart. And, the whole world, the gas bug has gotten out, and anyone who's neutral is screwed too, because the lights are off. All right? You're down to just a coal-fired world. And it's just a really fascinating story. Your main characters are, the main characters are Russians. They're on board a train, the Iron Angel, that they hijack, and they tool around Russia on this train track, going from one post-apocalyptic area of Russia to another, basically fighting the KGB and trying to bring some justice and order to the post-apocalyptic Russian environment. It's fucking amazing, and I can't find Don Hawthorne anywhere. I've looked him. I've done web searches for him. I've tried to find him on Amazon. The Don Hawthorne is nowhere to be found. So if you're out there, Don, fucking write more of these because they're goddamn amazing.
Cool. So that was quite an honorable mention, Scott.
It's so fucking good, but no one will ever find it, so it's not in my top 5.
My honorable mention, I was going to make my top 5, but I didn't include it, was a book by Luke Reinhardt, Long Voyage Back.
Yep.
Again, written in the 80s. It was there's a hardback that I think I got you.
Yes, you did.
Because that was the only copy I could find. I couldn't find a fucking softback anywhere. I could only find the hardback.
Worth it. Totally worth it.
Long Voyage Back, Luke Reinhardt. It starts off in the Chesapeake Bay area this is another before, during, and after of the apocalypse. It's about these group of friends, group of people who get together. The war starts. I think it's a limited nuclear exchange, and they get on a boat. They get on a catamaran, and they sail out of the Chesapeake Bay. And the story takes place in this boat the entire time, and it's them traveling. See, it's got like a map of Maryland on the inside. Let's see here. It tells you where they're going. It's them sailing out of the bay into the ocean, down the coast, down to the islands, down around the Cape of Horn. It's all about their trying to survive and what they do to survive on this boat journey the whole time. And I think it was a very good book, because it's the trials and tribulations of, because again, it was limited exchange, but there's a lot of people left, and there's pirates, it's survival, it's trade, people trying to steal your boat. It's because they went with the boat route, because a lot of books don't do, let's go out in the water and survive, and they do that, and I think they do it's a really good book. I really do enjoy it. Because again, it's a during kind of scenario, like how are you going to survive and what's going to happen. And this thing slowly started to deteriorate, but again, you also find pockets of people who get their shit together pretty quick. Especially in the islands, places that weren't like super directly hit or super high tech like the United States. It's like our system's fragile, going to fucking collapse in a second. Whereas these people, it's like, well, we didn't really have much of this system anyway. We didn't have much to collapse, in the first place. So it's a Long Voyage Back, Luke Reinhardt. Very very good book. It's it's a boat journey on surviving in a boat.
The only other one that's even close to that, or surviving in a boat, would be The Last Ship. I don't really count On the Beach as surviving in a boat necessarily, because there's no surviving. Yeah. But The Last Ship is supposedly a combination of a great sea story like Hawthorne or Conrad with Post-Apocalypse. I don't think it can hold a candle to The Long Voyage Back.
Yeah, definitely much better book. So, all right, folks, we're going to wrap this up here. That was our top 5 favorite post-apocalyptic books, short stories, novellas. So we got through our list here, and we already decided. I had another idea of what we're going to do for next show, but it's our 30th show. We got to do Logan's Run. So that's what it's going to be. We're going to do Logan's Run. When we're going to do it, let me look at the calendar here. Next week is Gen Con, the 18th. We're not going to be able to do it because I'm not getting back till I got like a 4 o'clock flight, so I'm not getting into like 8:30 or something on Monday.
Yeah.
So
I'm not getting back until Tuesday morning.
You got a red eye?
I got a late flight. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yay, we can have lunch. So we're not going to do it the 18th. We're going to skip that week completely. We're not going to try to do it the next day because we're going to be recouping from Gen Con. So we're going to do the next show in 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks. We're going to do it on the 25th, and that'll give me time to crack open the DVDs and watch the TV series a little bit.
You're going to have to get completely caught up on that. I'll go back and crack open all the other Logan's novels, like Logan's World and.
Oh yeah, please. Okay, so your job is the novels. I'm gonna slug through the TV series so I get caught up on that one. So. All right, so folks, episode 30, we're turning 30. We are. Oh wait, hold on. No, you know what? I'm gonna save it for next show. Okay, I have something. But anyway, so Logan's Run. It's time to renew 30th episode, Logan's Run. So I want to thank everybody for watching us. Thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, Clint, for joining us and putting again a different perspective than just me and Scott's freaking opinion. So it's good that it was good to get some different books out there, different stories. Thank you very much. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, me. I don't know. I'm thanking myself, but so that's it, folks. We are going to sign out. We'll see you in 3 weeks for Logan's Run, episode 30. Thank you and good night.
Good night.